Hi everyone, and welcome to the final webinar in this series of Lunch and Learns. Today we're going to be looking at the analytics that you can get through the Village Guru software and how that can give you insights into your buyer and seller behaviours. So hopefully everyone can see my screen. When you log into the software, you should see this screen. This is known as your dashboard. On the left-hand side here, this is really telling you where you're sitting with your reports. So how many reports do you have that in total, and how many of those have been unactioned for a certain amount of time? And you can see that once you have reports that have gone unactioned for greater than 60 days, they turn into the red. Down the bottom here, you'll see what options you're showing in those reports. And this can give you a really good insight into, I guess, what you're comfortable with and what you're understanding and what you're talking to your prospective residents about. But it can also give you a really good insight into what they're considering, because obviously, if you're putting more than 3 options into the system, then the 3 options that the customer is saying they would like to see in their report are what will appear over here. Just so you know, in my particular account, which is this, this is my demo account. In my demonstration account, I have a retirement village that has 3 contract options. So it has a standard deferred management fee option, a no deferred management fee option, and a prepaid management fee option. I also have a land lease community in my account. So all of these, if you like, are what the software would consider internal properties. When we're looking at things, when you see pop up external property, that means that you're when you're running reports to compare your village with a different village or a different land lease community. And home is where you're running reports to compare against the current home. So these percentages here can give you a really good idea of what you're, like I said, what you're saying and what your customers are asking for. So for example, if this external village percentage was quite high, then that might mean that there's a lot of customers that are coming into you asking how you compare with the village or the land lease community down the road. Similarly, if the home percentage was high, then you know that your main competitor, or that, you know, a lot of what people are considering is whether they should stay at home or move into the village. So those percentages can be really good for understanding, if you like, those external forces, those competitive forces. Sorry. When we're looking at, for those of you who have different contract options, you might find, I mean, mine are fairly evenly weighted, but if you noticed that there was a very heavy weighting towards one particular payment option, that could indicate a few things. It could indicate that, you know, pricing in that area is either not right. So to give you an example, if there was a very heavy weighting towards, say, a no DMF option, or even a prepaid management fee option, that might indicate that your normal DMF price is too cheap based on people selling their houses in that area, and therefore they're ruling out the normal DMF price because it's not affordable. And so you see that in your percentages. You'll start to see, okay, if they've asked for that not to be shown in the report, but because I know some of you have more than 3 options, you've got, you know, 5, 7 options, some of you. So if you notice that weighting towards one particular contract, and you know that it's because it's not because of other factors. For example, I know that some of you have affordable housing type models that are only offered to people who meet a certain criteria, then this can help you to understand what's going on with your pricing and your contracts and why people are if you like, attracted to, or the opposite, not attracted to particular contract options, and it might be either looking at whether those contract options are structured in the right way, or it might simply be, and I know that a couple of our customers have gone through this process and used some of this data to help inform them. It might simply be looking at whether the pricing is right, because you know, house prices have gone up significantly over the last sort of 10 years, whereas retirement village prices don't seem to have gone up by anywhere near as much, and that does, particularly in certain areas, it does seem to be causing some biases. So that's really what this page can tell you. I think it's really important to know, and I hope that you are all doing this, when your buyer makes a decision, you simply need to click on this little cog and let the software know what the decision was that your customer made. So you can see at the top, and these decisions will be based on what the report is for that particular customer, as in what options have been considered within that report. So you can see at the top, you know, did the customer decide to buy under the standard deferred management fee? Did they decide to buy under the no deferred management fee, or did they decide to buy under the prepaid? So they're the options that they've been given. Or has the client decided not to buy, they've chosen to stay at home? Or did the client decide not to buy and we don't know what they've chosen? If in your report you had put a competitor's village, that would show as one of the options, client decided to buy external property, and then you would know that was. Whereas if we don't know that they're considering a different option other than staying at home, then we pop that in as unknown. So it's really important to let us know what that customer response is, because what we can do then, which I'll show you in a second, we can then run analytics that show us what was the customer offered, what did the customer choose. And if you do these updates, let's say you just did it once a week, that will then enable us to track things like how long is it taking for customers to make a choice, in addition to what choice are they making. So it would be really good if you could, you know, set aside a couple of minutes every week just to let the software know, so that we can get good analytics out of what are people showing, what are people choosing, and how long are they taking to make that decision. It doesn't necessarily need to be settlement of that particular property. It just needs to be that they've made that choice. So for some of you who are sales users, what I'm about to show you is probably new to you, because the software shows you functionality, I guess, based on your permission levels. But it's still important to know, for those of you who are in a management role, then it's really important for you to be able to access these particular analytics, and you can include them in your monthly, quarterly, annual report, whatever it might be. But it also gives you a really good sense of, I know some of you have got KPIs around the use of the software, so it can enable you to check that metric, i.e. how many sales were made, how many of those sales had a Village Guru report, if you're putting those particular KPIs around the use of the software. So when you're wanting to run analytics, the analytics you can run are incredibly flexible. So you can filter by time, and you can filter by any combination of these things as well. You can filter by the users, so you can choose to run, I mean, because I have both admin and sales permission user, I can run a report for myself, or I can choose a particular user to run a report from. So if I do that, it will then give me a list of all of the users who sit underneath my account, so that I can see what they're doing. for the purpose of this, let's just do all users. I could select that I don't necessarily want to nominate particular users, rather I want to nominate particular roles. So I want to see everybody who is a sales user, for example. I don't want to see reports run by a estate manager, or I don't want to see reports run by the corporate admin, which is the person who has the ability to change the configuration of the software and things of that nature. I'll just set that back. You can run it by state, pretty obvious. You can run it by particular village. So if you wanted to say, well, actually, it's not specific to any particular user, and this can be really helpful, I guess, if you're trying to identify patterns in either seller behaviour, so what are the sales team talking to people about, or you're trying to look at buyer behaviour, what are people buying, and identify why they are buying that. You can tick a particular village to say, no, I just want to do that. And you might do that for, say, 2 different villages, and then you'll be able to compare, okay, what does it look like for this one? What does it look like for that one? The other thing you can do is you can filter the results, and this can be really handy. You can filter the results by those customers who chose to buy and those customers who chose not to buy. And that can really help you to understand, those who are choosing to buy, which options are they choosing to buy under? And those who are not choosing to buy, what are they choosing? Are they choosing to stay at home? Are they choosing a competitor, or do you simply not know, and therefore there might be a piece of work that needs to be done to work that out? I'm a huge believer that there's probably more gold in knowing why people choose not to buy than there is in knowing why people choose to buy, because people choose to buy because that they probably are whatever it is that you think they are, whether it's motivated by the property, motivated by the location, motivated by the financial, whatever that might be. Whereas those who choose not to buy can actually give you a greater insight into how you could adapt your product or your service offering or whatever it might be to get a greater penetration of that market. So I'm just going to run a report with everything so that you can see what it looks like. I don't have, massive amounts of users. So, and you can see, obviously, well, Anne's catching up to me. Those of you who haven't met Anne, she's our National Sales Manager, and she can help you. If you've got any questions about this, about how to generate a report, about creating your Sally samples, about updating your Sally samples, anything like that, by all means, reach out to Anne. If you would like Anne to get in touch with you, by all means, just pop something in the chat box now, and she can follow you up after this. But you can see this is the number of reports that the user has run. This is how many times these particular options appeared. So for me, I've run 40 reports. 23 times I've shown the standard deferred management fee, 17 times I've shown the no DMF option, 17 times I've shown the prepaid option, 11 times I've shown a land lease community, 3 times I've shown how it compares with the current home, and 5 times I've shown how it compares with an external property. Importantly, this is how those numbers stack up, and this is why it's important to click on that little wheel and let us know what the customer decides. So of those 40 reports, of which 23 showed the standard deferred management fee, only 1 of my customers chose to buy under that option. 5 of my customers chose to buy under the no deferred management fee option, and 6 of my customers chose the prepaid option. So that might indicate that the people that we're running these reports for, so these 40 reports or that have shown these options, the value of their homes is is higher, and therefore the standard deferred management fee option is not as attractive to them. Now, my particular villages in this account are across different states and territories, whereas this could be much more significant if you're looking at comparing, say, a sales user in one village with a sales user in a different village, or you might even find that there are patterns in different states. For example, you might find that a particular contract option is far more popular in Queensland than it is in Victoria, or vice versa. Two of my so I did 11 reports showing a land lease community home. 2 people chose to buy under that. Now, that could be that I've shown that as a comparison, or it could be that they are reports that just show buying into the land lease community. This is where the other dashboard comes in quite handy. It may be that some of these are quite recent reports, and so I'm still waiting for the customers to decide whether or not they're going to buy, if that makes sense. 2 of my customers chose to stay at home, and none of them chose to move in to the competitor's village. And obviously the data that we're collecting here is only as good as what the customer is telling us, but it's still important to be able to see what's going on and to get as much information as we possibly can. You can see down here, you know, the number of reports, and you can see across the line how many of those. And so, for example, you can see that really, you know, Daniel's running reports, but is not telling us what options people are choosing, likewise for the remaining users. So that's why it's important. The functionality of the software in terms of putting these this data into a usable format, you can filter, and if you filter, so for example, let me just filter, just trying to think, I might filter by, a community. Let me just see if I filter by this. When you filter, you simply rerun the query and it will adjust the data. So you can see my reports have dropped from 40 to 24. So you might want to filter the data further than that. So you might want to filter the data and say, well, actually, I only want to see all the customers who decided to buy within that particular village. Okay, so now you can see, okay, 10 reports. This is, you know, we're showing them the contracts almost every time in that particular, the 3 different contract options in that particular, and no one's chosen the standard deferred management fee in that village. Every buyer has chosen either the no deferred management fee or the prepaid option. Then you can take that data and you can export it. So this will just export as a CSV file, and then you can, you know, I know that we've got some customers who put this into their, you know, other programs because it is a CSV file and it enables them to upload it into that reporting system. Or it might just be that as an Excel document, you can then, you can then manipulate this information. When I say manipulate it, you might want to change the colors, the format, you know, whatever it is that you're wanting to do. You might want to cut certain users off, whatever it is that you're trying to do. And you can do that multiple times simply by rerunning the queries that you're wanting to report on. So that's really everything that this webinar is quite a short webinar because we don't have slides and we're not getting into sort of the ins and the outs of how the system works and how it calculates. This is really about showing you what on a bigger scale, what is going on in terms of the use of the software and what are we noticing in terms of the behaviours of the sales team? What are they showing people? What are they talking to people about? And also then, what are the behaviours of your buyers? So are they buying? How long are they taking to buy is something that we're currently looking at. And importantly, which option are they choosing to buy under? Because it might be for some of you that there are particular payment options, but you can't offer that beyond a certain point. So if too many people choose a no DMF option, for example, that that's going to need to be turned off as an option, because the portfolio, as a business, doesn't want too much of that particular option. So that looking at this data might trigger you or trigger the leadership team to look at the pricing and whether or not the pricing is creating these kind of biases away from the standard deferred management fee option. Does anyone have any questions or comments or anything like that? Is there anything you would like me, given that we have about 8 minutes left, is there anything you would like me to go through in these analytics that you think would be helpful? If you do have any questions, you can pop your hand up, or you can put the question in the questions box, and that will come through to me as well. So I guess it is one of those things where as a sales user, what you see is quite different to perhaps what managers are looking at and what they're able to see, because as a sales user, you only see the reports that you're creating for your customers. So as a sales user, you'll only see this particular screen and this particular set of data. You will be able to get the other data about, okay, what have you shown and what have customers chosen? But in terms of looking at the data on a much higher level, i.e. looking at it by village, looking at it by state, or looking at it nationally, that is restricted to users who have those permission levels, so that they can put that into either their state report or their national report. It doesn't seem like there's any questions. I can't see anyone with a hand up or a question in the question box. Nothing from you, Kim. I'm picking on you because sometimes you'll ask me a question, and sometimes it's great to get people asking questions, because I'm a big believer that if one person's thinking it, 10 other people are, so if one person's saying it, 10 other people are thinking it. All right, well, if there are no questions on any of this, I'll let you all go and get back 7 minutes of your day. As I said last week, we are looking at a topic in the lead up to Christmas. So if you've got some thoughts or ideas about what you'd really love to hear about in relation to the software in the lead up to Christmas, we could do it as a Q&A. We could do it as a top 5 tips and tricks. I'm really open to suggestions. What I would really like to give you is something that you would find valuable. Yeah, we can send you a recording, Kim. So yeah, no problem that you miss the first 5 minutes. These things happen. In fact, you should automatically get, because you've attended the webinar, you should automatically get an email with the recording on it. But if you don't, just reach out to Anne and she'll make sure that she sends you a link to it. But yeah, by all means, shoot us an email and just let us know what you would be interested in hearing about, because we're very keen to do a webinar in the lead up to Christmas, like I said, that everyone is excited about. Okay, well, thank you so much, and have a great day. Talk to you later. Bye.